Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I'm Julie Barrett, and you are watching the Women's Planning Podcast with Jim and Julie today. It is 1 week before the 2024 general election. So, we're going to talk about all things election related. Nothing is off the table here. If you've got questions or topics that you want us to chat about, go ahead and enter those in the chat or in the comments, and we'll take a look at those. We have kind of an agenda set out here that we're going to go through, but would love to hear your comments and just hear from you what you're thinking about. From whatever part of the state. I know probably have a lot of Washington watchers, so welcome to my Washington friends, and just how you're feeling about the elections in general. Here a week out, we've had a lot of stuff going on. Jim, I don't know if you heard about this, but in Washington and Oregon yesterday, there were 3 ballot boxes that had fires set to them. And like one of the headlines was interesting. It was like, they appear to be burning. There's flames coming.
They're
They're
amazing.
burning.
The media's interpretation is amazing. They appear to be burning. They're clearly, on fire.
Right.
And, and I was that when as soon as you said something about Washington, I was like, oh yeah, the ballot boxes.
Right.
Doesn't that say quite a bit? About that they're worried there.
And yet it's not a surprise because last year or 2 years ago, 2 years ago, I think it was, that they had, it was like 3 different counties had this white powdery substance mailed to them, to their elections office. And, all of that had to be inspected. And I think it came with a little hate note or something like that. But, Washington has been all mail-in voting for at least 2 decades now. And the first time I voted was in 2004 with Dino Rossi. Christine Gregoire were on the ballot for governor. I voted for Dino Rossi. You've probably heard me say this story before. I voted for Dino Rossi for governor and John Kerry for president. That's how wacky I was in 2004. But they counted the ballots. So the first count of the ballots, Dino Rossi won. And it was so close, they did a recount. And in the recount, they magically found these ballots from, the trunk of some car, and Gregoire won. And they did Dino won the first 2 counts, and it was the third count where they found these ballots and Gregoire won. So it wasn't like a best out of 3. It was the third and final recount that, and so for me, this was my first time ever voting. And I saw this and I just thought, well, they just count the ballots until they get, the result that they want.
What they want.
Yeah. And so I'm not voting again, didn't vote again until Trump was on the ballot in 2016. And I think that Trump was the only person I voted for. I might have voted for the Republican gubernatorial candidate, but yeah, so it's a hot mess in Washington. And part of the problem, and you and I talk about this a lot, is that at least 2/3 of the Republicans in Washington are like, no, it's safe, it's secure. Don't be an election denier. Don't bring up, anything about election integrity. And then they ostracize the people who have the audacity to question the safety and security of the election system.
They try to do that in our local GOP meeting. Ostracize people who bring up election integrity. And I'm like, I don't understand that.
That's in Florida.
I know.
That surprises me.
Yeah, it's not. That's what I'm saying. I don't like anybody saying, "Oh, we don't have to worry about that in Florida." Anything we don't have to worry about that in Florida, you need to worry about. Right?
Absolutely.
And I'm in a red county. Red as it gets. Did I tell you about Jim Jordan and my former boss as far as election stuff? So I talked to my former boss. When did I talk to him? Must have been after our show, a couple days after our show. And my former boss owns a minor league baseball team up in Kalispell, Whitefish, Kalispell, Montana. And he held a fundraiser up there at the ballpark. It's got a brand new ballpark up there, really nice. Held a fundraiser up there. And Jim Jordan was there. There's only, I don't know, 10, 15 people total. Bless you. Good job with the mute. And Jordan asked my boss, or my ex-boss, what do you think about the election? Do you think Trump will win? And he said, yeah, I think he can win, and I think he probably will win, but it'll be stolen. Because I don't think he'll end up winning, because I think it'll be stolen. And Jim Jordan was aghast. Really? Oh, Mr. I'm so sorry to hear you say that. Really? Really? I'm like, I mean, it doesn't. I had a lot of respect for Jim Jordan.
Wow.
And I think I still probably do. But you know what? For me, if you compromise or you lie or you play the game on just one thing, then I'm done with you pretty much. Then I don't have any use for you.
But Jim, that is most Republicans. Most Republicans play the game. They're playing politics, and they'll compromise on everything. I mean, just look at where we are with all of these, culture issues. The Republican Party of today looks like the Democrat Party of the mid-90s.
Right. Yeah, it's really astounding. I mean, nobody seems to, as recently as, 10 years ago, I want to say, I knew a big Newt Gingrich supporter that, believed that we have to compromise. We have to reach across the aisle. And I do not. I consider myself, it was somebody I was dating. And the funny thing is she wanted to be a lobbyist. And I'm like, it's just a power move. It's just, needless to say, that didn't go very far, but the inconsistency is astounding in people. Compromise. I consider the middle. I consider myself in the middle. A lot of people would consider me a right-wing wacko.
Far right.
Yeah, far right wacko. And I only want, and I believe that I'm in the middle, because I define the middle by, if you will, the rule of law, which is the Constitution. I don't want any more. I don't want any less. And if you want more or less, there's a way to get it.
Right.
And so it's just, people just have so many excuses for compromise.
Well, they have excuses, and I'm trying to figure out if they're excuses because people are afraid, right? So we're compromising, we're moving a little bit to the left because we're afraid that we can't win if we actually have standards and we hold the line. So we'll compromise a little so we can win. But that never works, right? The Democrats see that and they're like, great, just keep on coming. And so they keep moving these Republicans to the left. Or is it, and I think it's a combination of the two, but would love to hear your thoughts on this. Or is it that they're playing the game of politics? And so to keep the money rolling, to keep in power, whatever perceived power they have, this is the game. This is the way they have to play the game. So
Right.
Is it one or the other? Is it a combination of the two? I think it's a combination of the two. What do you think?
I think it's a combination. I think it's a combination. I think it all boils down to the second one. There's no reason to compromise other than to stick around, try to stick around.
Right.
but and they're supposed to be working for us. I mean, the whole thing's gotten flipped, where they think that we are, beholden to them,
Right.
right? The whole thing's got flipped around. They need to be, they need to be in the strongest way possible removed. I mean, I don't mean they need to be gone. We need to have recourse. People won't stand up.
Nope. There's no accountability. And one of the things, I'm so tired of hearing people tell me, people that probably I don't even know, but strangers on the internet that will tell me, it's because of you and your Christian views. That's why we don't win. I'm sorry, this has been going on for decades, and I just got here 5 minutes ago, and you're telling me it's because I'm a Christian and I stand by the word of God, and that is what shapes my position. And you're telling me that's why we lose. We don't lose because you guys abandoned, all of the issues and went, have gone completely to the left. I mean, it's just,
Right.
and so when they say that, if you're not stubborn and hard-headed like me, you might hear someone tell you that and go, oh, I'm the reason we lose. I better change. Whereas
Right.
me, I just double down. But I think a lot of people hear those comments and they soften their position, or they feel intimidated or bullied. And so they just go along to get along. And that's, I think, complacency and this whole go along to get along is one of the biggest problems we have in America.
Yeah, and that's why I'm a right wing wacko, because I won't go along to get along.
Right.
It's just during the whole COVID thing. Come on, Dad, wear a mask. No. Well, the restaurant. No. I don't. It's nobody will say no.
Right.
It's. I mean, we've got evidence out the wazoo these days, all across the board, on the medical industrial complex, including big pharma, the military industrial complex. What else? I just had something else. Vaccinations. There's weather modification. I was listening to something today that, and I wondered about this with Helene. Why did hurricanes die after they get on land? This one goes 1,000 miles, 800 miles north, keeps going, and then kind of hovers and destroys an area that happens to have huge lithium deposits. When you watch some of this stuff, and I think the corruption goes so deep, people have to stand up. They have to vote. And I don't care. I mean, I at one point was where I wasn't going to vote for Trump. I wasn't going to vote for Harris, please, not a chance. I'm not sure it's a big deal in Florida either way, but it would be if a bunch of people, if 1 million people felt this way out of 20 million, but I think the lesser of two evils. One of my friends said, do you want more communism or less? More or less? This is clearly the choice. This is the better of two choices. And I'll tell you what, I watched Trump on Joe Rogan. I watched that interview. I saw him. Do you know the wrestler? You ever hear of the wrestler, The Undertaker?
No.
He's a WWE wrestler guy. Trump was on his podcast. And he actually was a pretty down to earth. They were pretty down to earth, logical interviews. He gets off. He doesn't go very deep, on things. I don't know. I don't know if he can or not. Sometimes deep on the policy issues, but he gets off track. But I'm not as worried about him as I feel like as I've been pushed to be worried about him by 2020. I don't even know. I have to set 2020 aside because I don't know what the hell that was.
Yeah. Did you know? I was just looked this up because, a lot of people have, kind of circling back to that, your weather modification. Um, if it was to deter voters, um, so I can't quite get there with you on the weather that they like made it downpour, but you're not going to argue with you about it. But if let's say that was whether it was God or some human force that modified that weather, and the human force was like, let's suppress the vote in this region of the country. Well, North Carolina has, compared to the 2020 turnout, they are 312,000 voters ahead of where they were 1 week out in 2020.
Wow.
So
That's
that's
enormous.
impressive. And I have been hearing stories, reading stories about voters in, those flood impacted areas, people who have had their, homes and their livelihoods completely devastated, have been, you know, going out of their way to make sure that they are voting in this election, which I think is amazing.
Right.
That's like a huge middle finger to anybody that would try to suppress the vote. And I love that.
Yeah, I do too. Oh, absolutely. How do you, like, I think it seems clear when you look at all the trends of everything, uh, when you know that Kamala's crowds are bussed in, you know, that they have to have Beyonce show up and
Yeah, you get
and they
Beyonce
showed
and
up to
Taylor
see
Swift or whoever
Beyonce,
they have, of course.
who's being implicated left and right uh, by in the Diddy scandal stuff,
Right. Get a
you
big
know.
P. Diddy party going and
And so, when you just see, and when you see Madison Square Garden, um, 22,000 inside and 75,000 outside.
that's amazing.
Somebody said they saw a picture of the street. It was just the whole street, building to building on either side, was packed for as far as you could see.
That's so cool. My son on Sunday night, my son called me after the rally was over. I only got to watch part of it because we had company, but he's 20, he's voting in his first election and he's going to vote for Trump. And he called afterwards and he was so excited. He was like, everybody who was anybody spoke at that rally and Elon was there. And, he's rattling off everybody that spoke and he was so excited. And, I just think it's so cool that they're appealing to young people. I think
Right.
Elon especially kind of has that appeal to a specific group of young voters that are, kind of techie,
Right.
awkward, but they love him and they think he's cool. And it's neat because it's pulling in a different kind of person. So
There's a
I see,
lot of,
hey Dave, Dave on Twitter is joining us. Good to see you from
hey,
Washington.
Dave. Yeah, I was going to say that. I noticed that while you were speaking. You know, I see a lot of, Turning Point. Vivek and Charlie Kirk are doing events together on campuses, and they have a pretty big crowd around them of supporters for these things, and it's amazing how respectful they all are to the dissenters, to the disagreements. You know, um, it just. Do you ever do you ever wonder? Do you ever just have moments of, am I real? Am I right? Am I really right? Are they really lying? Am I the one that's not seeing it? Because it's always, well, they're wrong. Both sides are like, well, they're wrong. Do you ever have a moment and wonder whether you're not
Um,
seeing something?
I don't know. I think being from Western Washington, and sort of living in that land of alternate reality, where so many people live in an alternate reality. I don't know if that maybe makes me different? I guess, are you talking about like when the Democrats say,
Just,
something is
maybe
the way it
like,
is, or
well, I see, I think I've learned, well, for instance, uh, for instance, in the 90s, just something I learned on the war thing. I can't remember the name of the city, but the United States, Russia's not doing anything different than the United States does in this Ukraine situation, and that the United States has
oh,
done. Under Clinton, we bombed the hell out of Eastern Europe to change the borders to Slovenia, and I can't remember. I didn't get in depth in it at all. I just wonder sometimes. Sometimes I can see some of their points. Sometimes I can see some of their points. For instance, Candace Owens has been attacked mercilessly somewhat by a lot of the conservatives about her anti-Semitism. You know, because she's calling out the I guess you would, well, I would say the Zionist Jews, the elite Jews, the Jews at the top. And I've had conversations with many people over in the past. This will be controversial, probably. That I can see that they aren't all that different. What Israel's doing right now.
I think Candace has kind of gone off the deep end. So
Yeah, and I don't, because of conversations I've had with other people and
yeah,
quotes I've seen from, I don't know, over the century on that on positions on the rest of the world, on
yeah,
on
I
on,
think,
posi- on the position they take about the rest of the world.
yeah. Are you talking about Israel, or who are you talking,
Is
the
at the top.
Jews?
Well, not no, I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about, and for almost, I would almost describe it as, yeah, their deep state.
Oh, I think in
Those
every
are,
government of every country, there's, deep state. I think there's so much that we don't know. And um, I think, you and I were talking before we went live, and, on the Ukraine thing with, we are constantly sending money to Ukraine. There's no end in sight. Like, this is just, in my opinion, this is just some big, huge money laundering scheme.
I agree.
And the Republic, we've got, so many Republicans in Congress that are voting to send money to Ukraine. They won't stand,
Yeah, I
including
don't
Mike
understand this.
Johnson. And that's something that's got to stop. We've got homeless American veterans living on the street, and we're sending billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine for this. At least from what I can see, and I can't say that I watch a lot of Ukraine coverage or dig into it too deeply, but just from the surface level that I see it there's no strategy, there's no end in sight. This is just going to go on for forever and ever, just like everything else, every other war.
Zelensky is clearly an actor plot. It's just,
Absolutely.
it's a joke. It's a joke.
Absolutely.
From what I understood about those Istanbul Accords, it was agreed that Russia would back off. It seemed like they put a number of years on it, for 23 years, for some reason, was the number, and Ukraine would end its bid would stop trying to enter NATO, become part of NATO. I mean, it was all worked out until the money laundering scheme killed it. The warring parties had it worked out. The West killed it.
Yeah. No surprise. Dave said in the chat, are those sending the money getting kickbacks? I wonder. I think they are. I mean, I don't have proof of it, but that's my speculation. I think there's some motivation for these people to be on board with sending our money overseas, and whether they are getting money or they're just staying in power. I don't know. You can
Right.
get deep, that's not my area of focus, and it's so
Right.
easy. There's so many rabbit holes that you could lose yourself in. That's not typically one of mine, but it is.
Yeah, there's so many that, that you potentially could lose yourself. And I just think that, with this election, I there's too many things at stake that I don't think that, I think maybe we talked about this last week, but the Supreme Court concerns me. Now, most of those people, the conservatives on the court are not, really, we're not worried about their age or coming to an age to, retire, but they could if they get it, they pack the court, right? And
Right.
that can't happen. And they would do it. The Constitution is of no consequence to them. Law is of no consequence to them.
Right.
You have to vote to close down the border. It's clear you have to vote to close down the border.
I truly believe that if we elect, not we, you and me, and probably most of the people watching us, but if America elects or appoints, what's the word I'm looking for? Because I don't think if Harris becomes president, it won't be because she was fairly elected. I don't believe that for a second.
I don't for a second either. And also it'll be the end of the Electoral College, probably.
Yes, it will be the end of America as we know it, because their whole intention is to deconstruct America as we know it. And I don't know. Installed. Thank you, Dave. Yes, that was the word I was looking for. If Harris is installed, I do not believe we will continue to be the America that we know. And I doubt we would ever have another election.
Yeah, we'll have the, it'll be more furthering the reign of the Black Messiah.
Right.
Which people are still, they talk about the Trump cult, let's talk about the Obama cult.
Right.
The Barry and Mike cult.
Hey, did you see, I think it just came out today. I just saw it this morning. There's a new video. Julia Roberts is narrating it. And it's this woman goes into the poll with her white hat that's got like a blingy flag, US flag on it. And she's going to vote. And Julia Roberts is saying, that this is the opportunity for women to, this is one of the last places where women have a choice. Is at the ballot box. This is one of the last places that we have a choice. And the woman votes and she looks up at the woman across from her and they kind of like nod and wink at each other. And then she walks out and there's a man waiting for her and he's got a mustache and he looks like he's from the 80s. And he asks her, well, how did you vote? And I found it to be so condescending. Like, do the Democrats, it's a rhetorical question. Do the Democrats really think that women are that stupid that we think that the ballot box is the last place that we have a choice? And what a disgusting portrayal of a marriage.
Right.
Like, yeah. To imply that most women's husbands are demanding to know how they voted.
Everything they do is that way. Everything they do is an assault on what they say they're for, that they're trying to defend. Everything they do is an assault on women. What that women allow that that you can vote for. I mean, the people, But it's that one deal. It's that one thing. They have two issues: abortion and Trump.
Yep.
It doesn't matter that a woman's fighting against that a man's fighting against a woman in in a UFC fight, in an MMA fight,
Right.
right? And cracks her skull. Doesn't
Right.
matter. Abortion and not Trump.
Reproductive freedom.
Reproductive rights.
Right.
Here's my favorite is reproductive health care.
Yeah.
They have so many.
Well, I always say they're brilliant at branding.
They're brilliant. Well, they have the you know, they have the largest voice in possible in the world is the American mainstream media.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of and a lot of older people in the United States aren't clear. At our GOP meeting, most people, I'd say, the vast majority of people are older than me. How about that?
Wow.
At the meeting, yeah, right.
Are
What
they
do you
all
think I
bringing
am?
their
That
like
wow is a little
oxygen
bit.
tanks, and
What's that?
they're all bringing their oxygen tanks and their
Yeah,
walkers.
I mean, they're all good bit older than me, and most all. And I don't think they're informed. I don't think they're informed. They're good
Oh,
Americans.
I think so many people in the Republican Party, people that are, have been I call them party people, party people for decades. When I first started doing the work I do in Washington, I was very surprised that I quickly knew more about policy than most of the people that had been active in the party for decades. And I don't say that to talk down to them. I just was surprised. And I was like, well, what do they focus on? And the party, by and large, at least based on my experience, both in Washington and Florida, they're very focused on elections, and their meetings and their get-togethers and their events. Not necessarily things that move the needle or that bring in new people and new ideas and new processes. And there's a lot of very good people within the party, but it's time to update, right? It's time to
Yeah.
update the processes. It's time to get new strategies. It's time to get up to speed with, the Democrats are, miles and miles ahead, and it's time to catch up, because if we're running out of time, right? We're running out of time to catch up.
I'm a precinct committeeman in here, and the precinct committeeman strategy I thought was genius and should have been fairly easy. I became a precinct committeeman because I saw the video. There's about 400,000 precinct committeeman seats. About 200,000 of them are taken.
Are you talking about in Florida or across the country?
Across the country. They're only about half are filled. It runs about a little bit around probably 55, 45, maybe, I don't know, 60-40 rhinos to conservatives. When I say rhinos, in the base, I think a rhino politician is bad. The
Right.
people that I would say are rhino constituents, like, for instance, my uncle, he's like, I thought Chris Christie would be a good president. And I was just like,
they just don't know.
I'm like, well, he's 90, you know, but still, but my dad got in the Trump train, it was in 20, he just turned 86. He got in the Trump train at 82 out on the highway in his minivan with his wife. Right.
Wow.
But then he ran right out and got the jab.
Is your dad
because they are
still
not
living?
informed. They don't know. What's that?
Is your dad still living?
Yep. Yep. With Parkinson's, that's not good.
Did the jab contribute to that?
One would not be able to know, but it came on since then.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
it's, we're going to leave it in the Lord's hands.
Yep.
I
That's
just
what
want
they
to
said.
scream.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he used to, I guess it shows the difference in me and kind of the rest of my family. My brother did not get it. My closest brother, closest in age to me and closest, but didn't get it, nor anybody in his family. And my dad would be all over him about getting it, you know. And Dan finally said, "Listen, you need to stop. I'm not. It ain't happening. It ain't happening." But they never said one word to me.
Hmm.
They never said one word to me or my kids.
Well, that's good.
Well, because they're scared of me, I suppose.
That's good.
Yeah,
They
because
know
I'm
that
like,
you're set in your ways in some things, and that's probably okay. I
you
want
know,
to
I,
pivot a little bit, and
sure.
Dave has a good comment here that's a perfect segue into something we really wanted to talk about. He said, "A vote for abortion, a vote for abortion is a vote against God," and we wanted to talk. I agree with that, but we wanted to talk about Christians and voting. Uh, there was a survey um, published a couple of weeks ago about the amount of Christians that didn't vote in 2020. It's like 43 million
Is that
Christians.
how many there were?
Mhm.
Man,
43
you're gonna
million
make me angry.
Christians across the country did not vote in the 2020 election. And the election was decided by the popular vote anyway, was decided by, I believe it was like 42,000.
Is that all it was?
So
Okay.
that 43 million would have could have changed the result of the election, considering that most Christians tend to vote conservatively, right? So if we
Correct.
consider that a majority of those 43 million votes would have gone to Donald Trump, we could have had a different outcome. Now, you and I are both very outspoken about our faith and the importance of voting and being involved in, government and things like that. It's been interesting to see. It seems like there's more pastors speaking up, or maybe it's just a small few that are being very vocal about it. Are you
Right.
hearing anything in your community?
I haven't heard a whole lot in my community. Um, I don't attend church because I'm not thrilled with uh, anywhere, and I don't believe that we stand up like we should in at the pulpit for what's true and good and right without compromise.
Mhm.
Um, but I've heard rumblings on reading through some stuff. I had or was involved in a post just this week about that, and I think a lot of pastors are, that's not our. I've heard people say that's not our place to tell the congregation how to vote. That it's not the pastor's place to tell the congregation how to vote, and I'm like, really? I think I will double down on Dave's a vote for abortion is a vote against God. I'd say a vote for the left, a vote for a Democrat, is a vote against God.
Yes. I think absolutely a vote for the Democrat is a vote against God, but to not vote at all
Right?
is
Yeah, is
basically to
also
say, I'm out. I'm not going to have anything to do with this. And one of the things I heard this on a interview with Glenn Beck was interviewing a pastor. And the pastor said, he's hearing from a lot of Christians that they'll say, well, I'm just not going to vote. And by not voting, I'll be making a statement that I don't agree with any of your candidates.
Right.
And he said, nobody cares that you didn't vote. And that's so true. Like, nobody's going to go, oh, Julie didn't vote. She really made a statement by not voting. My elected officials are not going to notice that I didn't vote. Nobody cares that I didn't vote, only me. And by not voting, we are allowing for the Democrats and this far left, these extreme left politicians who are evil and who are anti-Christian, anti-Bible, that seek to kill, steal, and destroy everything that everything that is biblical, God's word. And our nation was founded on that.
That's crazy talk. That's crazy talk. They don't mean anything like that. They would never do anything like that, except like maybe in 2020 when they kind of test ran it, when they dry ran it on us. Lacey made a comment that her pastor was just named a Northwest Regional Director for Turning Point USA.
That's awesome. And Lacey's in Washington, so that's
based.
good.
I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they're I hate using the word evil because it seems so over the top, because it just seems like rhetoric, but they are, because we know what's going on.
Right. We're very much fighting a spiritual battle.
They're in Florida, Amendment 4 for the abortion amendment. Abortion up to birth by your health, with a decision by you and your healthcare provider.
Healthcare provider.
Right. Oh, you mean my trainer?
Which could be a social worker. Yeah. The definition of healthcare provider is extremely broad.
Abortion for a minor without their parents' consent? Are you kidding me? Is anybody it's the whole same thing with the gender stuff,
And like I told you, I don't remember if I said this last week when we were talking, or if I told you before before we went live, but I would say with 90% certainty, if Amendment 4 passes in Florida and abortion becomes enshrined in the state constitution, the next thing they will do is they will do gender affirming care, so-called gender affirming care, because those are all packaged up very nice with the same group of people. It's the Planned Parenthood, George Soros, all those people that are in favor of that. So, if they can get these leftist amendments passed, these extreme amendments passed, which Amendment 3, the weed amendment, is also very extreme, we're going to be looking like the left coast. In, like DeSantis said, in a couple election cycles, we look no different than California.
Yeah. It's the weed thing is one of the things they used to destroy Colorado.
Yep.
Colorado was red as Florida 20 years ago. Both senators and 5 out of 7 congresspeople.
Did I tell you that my state senator, Joe Gruters, is one of the biggest supporters of Amendment 3?
No.
Republican Joe Gruters.
Well, I believe probably, I haven't heard him say it because I'm over his ass, but Matt Gaetz is too, I believe, because I believe they're involved in the
True Leave is the
financial side. The financial side.
Yep. That wouldn't surprise me. Donald Trump even, I got a mailer the other day with Donald Trump on it that Donald Trump supports Amendment 3. So that's awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. And he does.
Yeah.
I believe he does.
He did support Amendment 4, and then he got so much backlash about that.
Yeah, he got slammed. Yeah, and like I said, I don't want to bring up things because I have so many things I could say because it has to be on that line of too big to fail, which I think
Right.
we're seeing with what state did you mention? 300, oh, North Carolina.
North Carolina.
A week before they're up 300,000 in votes. You can't
Right.
tell me people are rushing out for Kamala Ding Dong.
No. Especially
You know
in a
what?
place like that where they've just had this huge, storm, this huge natural disaster, and the lack of response from FEMA. Those people know what the government is not doing.
They were ignored, not a lack
Right.
of response, right?
Yep.
I want to be on record as pronouncing Kamala's name as Kamala, not because I am racist
Kamala.
and
Not
I'm a far right
Kamala.
straight
Kamala.
Kamala.
Yeah.
Kamala. No, Kamala. Yeah, yeah, that's the racist way to say it. Did you ever see that
Right.
on that clip with Nancy Mace? She called her Kamala, and it was MSNBC, I think.
Oh,
The
yeah.
panel just blew up. You
I
racist! You're
know
saying that
somebody
on
got mad at
purpose.
Tucker. Tucker, this was a few years ago. Somebody got mad at Tucker. This was when he was still on Fox for pronouncing it wrong.
Yeah, it's
Well, then get a name like Julie that's hard to mispronounce.
Huli. Well, it's just. I mean, the whole thing is a sham. Everybody, the whole thing's a sham. Everything about Kamala Harris is a sham.
Right.
I mean, she's not even black, as it turns out, at all.
Well, and I could care like I could care less about what color her skin is or what she's like. I mean, the fact is her policies just suck.
We don't
And
care about that at all. We don't care about identity politics at all. We want a meritocracy, merit-based
right,
candidates.
right.
And we don't care
And
about
the
that at
fact that
all.
she
But
was
the fact that they're trying
installed
to
as
run
a
that up the
candidate,
flagpole, what's that?
the fact that she was installed as a candidate, like she's never been like she wasn't elected. She didn't get voted.
That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter for Democrats. They only
Right.
want democracy when it suits them.
Well, and the fact that that's true, and then the fact that they just like sheep, their candidate got swapped out on them, and the sheep were just like, okay, now it's Kamala. Like nobody, I didn't hear from any Democrats that were like, why are we?
Yeah, what the
How did
F
this
over?
happen?
What's going on over? You know,
Yeah,
it's yeah, it's going to be, and the other thing is, are people really going to let them get away with who is it, Pennsylvania or Arizona? It's going to take 10 or 13 days, 10 to 13. I don't know why they came up with 10 to 13.
I think that was
What happened?
Pennsylvania and Georgia. I think wasn't it? Isn't it Brian Kemp, who's the governor of Georgia, said it was going to be like 2 weeks or something?
Kemp said that himself.
Yeah.
See, how it's so hard because I'm not a fan of his.
I know there's
You
a
know,
lot of Republicans that I'm not a fan of.
are you a fan of Kristi Noem?
Eh, mm.
I
She's
think I
made
was
some
a
good. I
forever.
mean, if you separate personal from politics, I think she's done a good job with policy in her state.
Yeah, I do too. Well, I mean, she made me a forever fan when she said, "We're not doing anything about coke. We're not
Yeah.
mandating locking down
Yes.
anything in South Dakota."
Yes.
Well, they don't have a big population. That's why it didn't matter there.
They have. Did you know that South Dakota also has an abortion amendment on their ballot?
Yes. 10 or 12 states? 10?
10
Do.
states have abortion. 3 states have weed. Let's see. 39 ballot measures on voting in elections. Let's see. Florida, Nebraska, North Dakota, and South Dakota. So yes, South Dakota does all have weed. Florida, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota. And it's probably the same amendment. It's probably a copy paste. There's Arizona has a immigration policy. They
What
also
is
have.
that? I can imagine. I mean,
Let's
Katie
see.
Hobbs
It
was
would
installed.
increase the use of a federal database to check employment eligibility and give state and local law enforcement agencies the authority to detain and deport undocumented border crossings, despite court rulings that have established that the power belongs to the federal government. Democrats and progressive groups have described the measure as effectively resurrecting controversial 2010 anti-illegal immigration legislations. And voting rights groups have argued it is designed to galvanize conservative turnout and counter enthusiasm for the state's abortion rights proposal. California voters are going to be asked if they want to raise the minimum wage to
It's illegal.
$18 an hour.
It's illegal to ask for an ID in California for the election. They passed
I think
a law.
California isn't California mail-in also?
I mean, who?
Washington doesn't do ID either. I mean, they
Nobody in the
basically
world
whatever
does
California
this.
does, they do it too.
Nobody in the world does this. You know, nobody in the world
When I
does this
voted in
mail-in
person
voting.
last week here in Sarasota, I had to show them my ID, and then I had to sign the little iPad, and then they were still holding my ID, and they matched they looked at and he goes, "Oh, you did good."
Yeah, I will vote. I only vote in person and on election day. That's the way it should be if it was up to me. I wouldn't do early. I wouldn't do mail-in. I wouldn't do, used to be called absentee, right? I didn't
With the
know that
mail-in?
there was.
Well,
Yeah.
there's absentee and there's mail-in, and I don't know what the difference is, but I've been tracking through Florida's Voice News. They have a really cool data tool that you can track the elections, and you can see you can sort it by mail-in only or in-person only. And if you look at the mail-in only, like Democrats completely, dominate the mail-in. But in person, Republicans are many points above Democrats. And then if you do all of it combined, I think as of last night, it was 45% Republican turnout and 36% Democrat turnout.
Good. Do they show the numbers, or they're just showing turnout?
They show the exact numbers, and they show it by county too. It's really cool. It updates every 10 minutes.
That's votes?
Voters. So people that have gone in and voted.
Right.
So you obviously don't know who they voted for. And I had a conversation with someone the other day who was making the assumption that every Republican voter was a vote for Trump, but you could vote for a Democrat. So there's nothing to prevent.
And vice versa.
Right,
I hear I hear people Democrats saying they're not voting for her. I wonder who's still.
I don't think Florida is in play for the Democrats, but I think it's fun to be able to look at that tool coming from Washington, where you didn't have any data until 8 p.m. on election night. It's kind of cool to see it real time and to see that.
Absolutely.
It can be done.
We had the Attorney General, no, Secretary of State on. The Florida Secretary of State.
Okay.
Child, is that his name? Anyway, he was really good. We've got it. It's pretty solid. There's still things I don't like. I don't like machines at all. If there's a machine, it's susceptible.
You want it to be hand counted.
Absolutely. There's no reason you can't.
Yeah, you could hand count.
Every time somebody walks out, check,
Yep.
check, check, check. Check, 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 check.
Right.
I don't. It's imperative that we win.
Agreed. What's your prediction?
I really do feel like it's going to be that too big to cheat. But I just,
I
when
hope
you've
so.
got that, I don't know. I guess if I had to, you know what? If I'm forced to choose, I choose that we win.
That's my hope. That's my prayer. I remember watching, because being on the West Coast in 2020, we were watching election night. And I very clearly remember when Fox News called Arizona for Biden. It was very early in the evening. Like the polls
Oh
in
yeah,
Arizona had just closed. And I remember thinking, what? And then I remember seeing the counting, the polls being not the polls, but what do you call it after the polls close and they're counting, the tabulating being shut down. 1:00 in the morning, we're just done. Everybody go home, turn off the lights. It like just weird stuff that you watched in real time and it didn't add up. And then we weren't supposed to ask any questions. No one was supposed to ask any questions. And I think it was 2020 was, I thought for sure Trump would win it handily. And I still
handily.
think that he probably did. Um, the I think it was like 2 months, but up until January 6th, right? For 2 months after the election day, it was just this constant um unsettled, like there was stuff going on in the courts and things like that. And it was very um it gave a lot of anxiety, I think, to the American people, especially the American people that pay a lot of attention to this and who are very invested in um, the outcome of the election. So based on that, I do worry. I Here's my prediction. I predict that Trump does win by a landslide. And I don't think that the Democrats are prepared to let that happen. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how they would stop it or change. I don't know. I'm just saying I don't think that they're prepared to relinquish power. And I think that if Trump wins, we know there will be unrest in blue cities because what we saw in 2020 with George Floyd, and think back to 2016 on Inauguration Day, all of the riots and stuff that happened on Inauguration Day. November 6th, 2024 would look much worse than that around the country.
I think if they say they're not going to allow it to happen. Okay, they say they're not going to allow Trump to win. Many say that. They say they're not going to accept it. They say they're not going to accept it.
Right.
Many believe they will not allow it. I mean, they've tried to shoot him 2 or 3 times.
Right.
Is it 2? Is it 3 now?
I think it was 2. I think the third one was a false alarm kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you want and what needs to be said.
Right.
About who you're dealing with in this. I think if Trump wins, I saw one the other day, and forgive me, but I saw one the other day that the question was, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when Trump wins? And I said, I'm going to sit back and watch all the mayors let their cities be burned to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really, I don't feel bad about that. Maybe that's not very Christian, but I don't feel bad about that. Because
I do. I mean, because I just have so many, my family and my friends live in Western Washington. And they will be, if that happens, they will be dramatically impacted. by that. And so, I hope that people are, uh, I'm kind of like my thing that I say to people that ask me question about the after is don't panic, but be prepared. And if you're prepared, then you won't need to panic. That means
Right.
have a food supply. Don't have to leave your house if you don't need to, right? Have a food
Right.
supply, have water, have gas, have batteries, have a ham radio, have ways that you can communicate, and be protected. If you need to shelter in place or hunker down or whatever, be ready for that scenario. That way you don't need to panic.
It's I there will be significant violence when he wins.
Unfortunately, I think you're right.
And I don't know, the one thing that can't happen, which I understand why I'm not I'm not a huge opponent of defending yourself when things are stolen from you or taken or whatever. But I also don't think, but we can't let a civil war happen because they want anything to be able to declare. They'll try to get martial law declared, and we can't let it happen. We can't let that happen. And you saw that the DOD pushed through a new law where the military can be used for lethal force against citizens.
Yeah, I saw that.
And nobody wants to say, nobody's up in arms about that.
I think people are afraid to be up in arms about things like that. I think people are afraid. We have people, and rightfully so, that are afraid of their government. Americans should not be afraid of their government. We should not have a government that is turning on law-abiding citizens.
They should be afraid of us.
Right. We let government get too big, and a big part of that is, we're responsible for that. We can't shake our finger and place blame without taking some of the responsibility of that. And I'm right there with everybody else. I mean, for most of my life until the last few years, I was not engaged in government or politics. It wasn't anything I wanted to listen to, talk about, get involved in. Not my thing. But by doing that, we have allowed this to happen. And we all have a part to play.
I think it was Plato to not be involved, lets you be allows you to be ruled by the worst of you.
Right.
And and when you look at the people, you're like, how did these people become how did they get elected or become, I mean, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Maxine Waters, Rashid.
Well, look at that. I just wanted to read that post of Danny Gokey that I retweeted yesterday. I think you responded to it. But you can decide to not get involved in government by not voting, but realize this: the government has already chosen to be fully involved in your life. And I think so many people don't even realize that. They don't realize that the government is already all up in your business.
Right.
Completely. So either get in the game and, and help, or this is just going to get incrementally worse.
Well, if when Trump wins, and maybe he makes, Elon, you've seen that about Elon being the efficiency czar, if you will, government efficiency task force leader czar.
Is this just speculation, or did Donald Trump say that?
Talked about. I believe it's a thing.
Okay.
Put it that way. But do you think will they take specific actions, and will they slash things, and will they take action on all this, on the Adam Schiffs and the Nancy Pelosi's and the Chuck Schumers and the Sheila Jackson Lee's and I can't remember all their
I
names off the
think we
top.
have to manage our expectations.
The AOCs, yeah, because there's a certain sect out there that they're all just one.
Look at how his first term in 2016 was consumed by Russia. And so they will use something else, whether it's the indictments and all the stuff that's going on in New York, whether they'll use that or they'll find something to distract him and keep him from doing the work. So it's going to be really important that he has a cabinet and appoints people that will be able to do the work with him and for him when he's otherwise, engaged in other things.
I don't mean to be negative, but let me say one thing about that, the cabinet and the people surrounding him. Laura Loomer.
Oh, goodness. I know. And honestly, that clip of Vivek talking about, gay marriage and stuff last night, and I realize it's getting to an election and he's trying to, I think Vivek really believes, I don't know. I don't think he's a Christian, so that's probably why. But
Vivek?
Yeah. But, just listening to how some of these people that are campaigning with Donald Trump are liberals. They
Right.
are, it's the Bill Clinton party of the mid 90s. And somehow we have to start moving things back to the right.
Yeah. How's that going to look? What's that going to look like? How are we going to, hold his feet to the fire? Because, I don't know.
Well, people can't kick up their feet when he gets elected and think that he's going to save the day and everything's going to be fine.
It's what Republicans do. Once we get him elected, it's over. We'll panic. In 3 years, in 3.5 years, they're going to go, oh shit. Who are we going to run? Right. We better find somebody good. Okay, let's talk to McConnell. Let's see what he's up to.
God help us. No.
We had Reagan for 8 years, and then they sat on their butt with HW,
right?
Bush, and one termer, and Clinton comes in.
Yeah, HW wasn't good. I wasn't a fan.
I think he's worse than that.
I think I am optimistic for 2028. I think it's my hope that DeSantis is gearing up for a run in 2028. And I think that would be good because he'll be termed out for governor. So we could let him go. But you're right. I mean, the Republican Party across the board doesn't have a good candidate pipeline, which is scary because the Democrats got them lined up down the street and around the corner.
Right. And do they though? I guess who's it going to be? Gavin?
Oh, I don't know who I didn't expect Kamala.
Me either.
That was new.
They did that out of deference.
I think you've got Newsom. It wouldn't surprise me if Washington's Bob Ferguson takes a stab at it just because his ego is that big. I don't think he'd get anywhere, but I think he might throw his name in the hat. Who's the guy in Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
He could begin with an S.
What?
They thought he was kind of one of the names they were throwing around for.
What if Justin Trudeau moved to the United States? Maybe, he's done being prime minister. Maybe he would be done being prime minister in Canada. He could come down and be a Democrat. Probably get a lot of support.
Yeah, but I don't think that he's a citizen, so that wouldn't work.
Oh, it doesn't matter if you didn't know. In case you
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
know.
If you're a Democrat, sure. Well, my friend, it's been a good
I hope we
discussion.
gave people something interesting to listen to for an hour.
Yeah, make sure that you vote. If you haven't voted, please vote. I voted early. Thank you, Jeannie Shapiro.
Yep.
Josh
Shapiro.
Shapiro, that's his name.
Josh.
If you haven't voted and you can vote early, go vote. If you're like Jim and you're election day only, which is fine. I get it.
You know,
I get it.
one of the new pejoratives these days is boomer. Boomers are, you know, like
Boomers are
the
election day voters.
well, the DeSantis based, the staunch DeSantis base, you know, boomers are idiots.
Oh, I wouldn't
No.
do that. I wouldn't say that about you.
I'm a idiot boom. I'm a boomer. I get offended, and I'm like, yeah, well, they're not talking about me, but still, I feel like I'm semi-knowledgeable.
You know a few things. We'll give you that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So go vote.
Thank you.
And we'll be here next week. I think.
Should we do it next week? We're going to do it on election day? I guess so.
Yeah, let's do it. Yep.
All
11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, and 10 a.m. for Jim up in the Panhandle.
Yeah.
West Florida.
Up in South Alabama.
South Alabama. There you go. I like that.
The Redneck Riviera.
Awesome. Well, everybody have a great rest of your Tuesday. Have a great week, and we will see you again next Tuesday.
Appreciate everybody that tuned in, and you know, we had better turnout this week with Dave Lacey and Jeannie on some comments.
Yeah.
So if we get the comments, I would love to have people bring up their you know, their issues and want to hear what we think or kick something out there for us to kick around, you know. So
yeah, and we'll be talking. We should have some good turnout numbers next week when we're talking, at least from what
some people say we'll know. Some people say it'll be so. Some people say it will be so overwhelming. We'll know by Tuesday, but by when we get online, by when we come online, I would love it.
That'd be great.
I really.
I mean, if it's the way we want it to be, that would be great. If it's not the way we want to be, then we won't know nothing.
Yeah, I know. Forgive me, but I really want to watch the meltdown.
Well, I fear for my friends in the blue states.
Yeah, you know what? Yes, I know. I do.
So pray for them. Pray for safety of the good citizens of the blue states.
You're making me feel guilty now.
Well, so there are a lot of people in blue states that are fighting that can't leave or just want to stay and fight. If you're there and you're fighting, we pray for you. We pray for you if you're not fighting, but they're at least trying to hold the line, right? And trying to, you know, go down kicking and screaming. It's the people in the blue states that are completely oblivious to it all that I can't. Anyway. All right. We'll see y'all next week.
God bless the USA. We'll see you guys.